Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke. Tax collectors and sinners were all drawing near to listen to Jesus, but the Pharisees and the scribes began to complain, saying, "This man welcomes sinners and eats with them." So to them he addressed this parable. What man among you, having 100 sheep and losing one of them, would not leave the 99 in the desert and go after the lost one until he finds it? And when he does find it, he sets it on his shoulders with great joy, and upon his arrival home, he calls together his friends and neighbors and says to them, "Rejoice with me, because I have found my lost sheep." I tell you, in just the same way, there will be more joy in heaven over one sinner who repents than over 99 righteous people who have no need of repentance. Or what woman, having 10 coins and losing one, would not light a lamp and sweep the house, searching carefully until she finds it? And when she does find it, she calls together her friends and neighbors and says to them, "Rejoice with me, because I have found the coin that I lost." In just the same way, I tell you, there will be rejoicing among the angels of God over one sinner who repents. Then he said, "A man had 2 sons, and the younger son said to his father, 'Father, give me the share of your estate that should come to me.' So the father divided the property between them. After a few days, the younger son collected all his belongings and set off to a distant country where he squandered his inheritance on a life of dissipation. When he had freely spent everything, a severe famine struck that country, and he found himself in dire need. So he hired himself out to one of the local citizens, who sent him to his farm to tend the swine. And he longed to eat his fill of the pods on which the swine fed, but nobody gave him any. Coming to his senses, he thought, 'How many of my father's hired workers have more than enough food to eat, but here I am, dying of hunger. I shall get up and go to my father, and I shall say to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I no longer deserve to be called your son. Treat me as you would treat one of your hired workers.' So he got up and went back to his father. While he was still a long way off, his father caught sight of him and was filled with compassion. He ran to his son, embraced him, and kissed him. His son said to him, 'Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I no longer deserve to be called your son.' But his father ordered his servants, 'Quickly, bring the finest robe and put it on him. Put a ring on his finger and sandals on his feet. Take the fatted calf and slaughter it. Then let us celebrate with a feast, because this son of mine was dead and has come to life again. He was lost and has been found.' Then the celebration began. Now the older son had been out in the field, and on his way back, as he neared the house, he heard the sound of music and dancing. He called one of the servants and asked him what this might mean. The servant said to him, 'Your brother has returned, and your father has slaughtered the fatted calf, because he has him back safe and sound.' He became angry, and when he refused to enter the house, his father came out and pleaded with him. He said to his father in reply, 'Look, all these years I served you, and not once did I disobey your orders. Yet you never gave me even a young goat to feast on with my friends. But now, when your son returns, who swallowed up your property with prostitutes, for him you slaughter the fatted calf." He said to him, "My son, you are here with me always. Everything I have is yours. But now we must celebrate and rejoice, because your brother was dead and has come back to life. He was lost and has been found." The Gospel of the Lord. Isn't it nice to have a nice long gospel? You get to stretch out those leg muscles and get ready for the long gospels of Lent that are coming. So sit back and relax, because this is a long homily. The Prodigal Son is one of the most enduring parables of the New Testament. There's only 3 characters in the story: father and 2 sons. At different times in our lives, in our relationships, we all play these roles at one time or another, with a father or one of the sons. So the question of the day is, can we come home again? Can we be restored to relationship to God and to each other on the far side of our failures? Is it possible, once we have lost our innocence and ruptured our relationships, can we put the shattered Humpty Dumpty pieces of our lives back together again? In the poem, all the king's men couldn't put Humpty Dumpty back together again. But this teaching of Jesus, the Son of God, says that it can be done. But you might easily say, how? We must consider first that for reconciliation to happen, there must be someone willing to play the part of the Father. There is need for someone to be willing to love mercy more than justice, to forgive debt that cannot be repaid, to become a champion of what a broken person might yet become, rather than keep them chained forever to their past failures. We're not very good at playing this role. We prefer to dispense forgiveness only when we feel like it has been duly deserved, or when time has been served, or ego has been served. When we think that the offender has suffered sufficiently. Aren't we afraid that the Father in this passage is too quick to forgive? That he is dispensing a cheap grace? Because if it is, then he's just encouraging more bad behavior. The Father will be perceived as weak. Perhaps not. Consider this. It is a truth that the miracle of forgiveness cannot be earned. In fact, it is precisely unmerited, undeserved quality of mercy, undeserved quality of mercy that has the greatest chance of inspiring true repentance and a life-inspiring change in behavior of the prodigal who has come home. Undeserved quality of mercy. Some people hurt us. Some people abandon us. Some people betray us. We can't just hope for reconciliation. The place to start is to pray fervently to God for the gift of a heart so big that it seeks the prodigal back home more than his or her apology, restoration more than justice. We are not good at this, but God is. Make no mistake about it. Forgiveness does not happen unless the one who has been wronged risks forgiveness. Yes, forgiveness is risky. So the young boy takes the money and runs. It takes this boy until he is wallowing in the mud of a pigsty to realize that there is another possibility. The decision to return home is found within him. So the question for any one of us who find themselves away from our true selves or emotionally distant from a ruptured relationship, our question is, will we allow ourselves to risk receiving mercy, even though we have terrible mistakes? Will we risk receiving mercy? Until we do, there will be no reconciliation possible. It is a gift that we cannot earn, but we must be willing to receive it. The parable seems to end without a finish. So look at the older son. He didn't want to join the party. His self-righteousness and his judgmental spirit was a pigpen of his own making. The party was for all who were present, and he remains outside, short-circuiting the grace that was offered. The story of reconciliation and forgiveness continues to unroll in our lives. How will we allow this story to finish?